Hi everybody, it's Cath Shaw True Love, and I'm coming at you today on Facebook Live from Bees on a Bicycle. Well, actually, we're sheltering in place here at home with my husband Graham, who is our videographer today. And so what we're going to do today is our top 5 questions that have been coming in via Instagram, Facebook, text, phone call, you name it. We're all kind of sheltering in place and have a lot of questions about gardening. We get about, I don't know, between 30 and 50 requests a day at Bees on a Bicycle, and I'm trying to cover the top 5 today so that we can celebrate National Gardening Day together with a little bit of information. So if you're ready, I'm ready, and we're going to go with number 1. The first question, I think a lot of people are fostering or paying attention more to their pets. They're asking about plant toxicity. Basically with this, Google is your friend, and this is even though I know quite a bit about toxicity and animals and plants and that sort of thing, I don't rely on my memory with several hundred different kinds of plants to determine whether or not a plant is toxic to your pet. Ultimately, the person that knows the best about that is your veterinarian. But that said, the internet with ASPCA has a huge database of which plants are toxic to which animal. And so I don't commit it to memory. What I do is I go on Google and I put the plant name. For example, Calathea, toxic to cats, or Calathea, toxicity cats. And I do a Google search, and then usually the first listing is right from the ASPCA, the American Society of Pets. You know, it's the National Pet Association. And they've got all of that information, and they have it listed by plant, and they'll talk about that. One thing to know is some plants are toxic to dogs, but not to cats, and vice versa. So it's important to include cat or dog in the search. And if you've got both a cat and a dog in your home, you'll want to search on both to do that. It's not unusual when people used to, before all of this virus stuff came about, when people came into bees, it wouldn't be unusual for me to quickly do a Google search on behalf of a customer to make sure that that information was correct before they bought a plant. And so anyway, that's how to answer your first question. Is this plant, fill in the blank, whatever kind of plant it is, toxic to my pet? Question number 2 is, how do I care for this plant? I'm about to buy this plant. The plant might be, I don't know, $20, $30 investment, and you don't want to mess up. First of all, what I say to most customers that are nervous about plants is it's kind of like they're living things. They're kind of like miniature, very inexpensive kids. You might have 5 or 6 kids, and not all of them go to Harvard. And so not every plant is going to be a stellar grower, super duper fabulous plant. You can try for that, but it isn't necessarily the case. There are some plants that thrive, and then there's some plants that do okay, and then there's some plants that kind of peter out and they're done. It just is kind of how plants are. Not every single one goes to Harvard. It just isn't how the human race is, and it isn't how the plant kingdom is either. So make it okay. So with that said, looking about care for your plant, if I'm not around to ask and I'm not at the store and we're not facing each other, a great way to look for that, for example, is asparagus fern care. Just put the word care and after it in your Google search, and you'll get the information that you're looking for from a bunch of different sources. And what I usually tell people is to look at least 2, because sometimes you've got somebody that has a certain opinion and it might not be accurate, or they're in a different part of the country than we are, and their dryness capabilities are different. For example, California gardeners and Arizona gardeners, it's a lot drier there than here in Tennessee, especially recently, because we just got 3 3/4 inches of rain yesterday. So anyway, that is the second question. How do I take care of this plant? Again, Google is your friend. If you don't have a plant community or somebody like me that's handy to ask, definitely put the name of the plant and the word care in your search engine box, and you'll get all of that information. The third question that I get a lot is, oh my gosh, there's a yellow leaf on my plant. Especially indoor plants, people ask this question a lot. I will tell you, the most useful tool for you is this. We would not do this with our children, but with our plant children, 9 times out of 10, it is a-okay to take your scissors and, for example, this calathea had about twice as many leaves yesterday, and a bunch of them were shriveled up, a few of them were yellow. It's the tail end of winter. To be honest, I got busy, I kind of ignored it, and so I took my scissors and I cut all the ones that looked kind of half dead and yucky and weren't pleasing to me. I just took my scissors and cut them off. If it was brown, if it was crispy, if it was yellow, I just cut them off. The main reason why plants turn yellow is they're getting watered too much. It isn't, sometimes when plants turn brown or yellow, we think that they're kind of dry, because we think about it kind of like cooking. And that isn't necessarily what's happening. What's happening is the plant is reacting to too much water. And a lot of people think they're taking care of the plant by watering the plant. And the plants react by giving a leaf or two that's yellow. And it's not like it's going to revert back to green. And so that's when your scissors come out, you cut them off, you cut the yellow leaves off, and you taper back on the water, and you let the soil dry out a little bit before watering it again. You just kind of abstain from watering, and that takes care of your plant a little bit better. So taking care of my plant, the first is you're going to get a lot of information online with putting the plant name and care in there. And then the second is don't be afraid to use your scissors to take your yellow or brown leaves off. It's a tool that we use at bees all the time, and it's super handy. If the stalks are a little bit thicker, you can use pruners, and I'll show you those in a minute. The fourth question is, what's a good plant for a beginner? So, actually, the third question was, how do I handle a yellow leaf? And so that was our third question. The fourth question is, what are good plants for beginners? I get a lot of questions like, hey, I've never gardened before. I want to start out with something. I'm kind of bored. I'm sheltering in place. I'm quarantined. Different people use different language. What is a good plant for a beginner? There are two different kinds of beginner gardeners, at least the ones that I've met over the past 3 years at Bees on a Bicycle. The first category is the ones that are kind of what I call the plant ignorers. Those are people that just kind of get a plant, they put it in a pot, and they want to ignore it. Then there's a second category of people that are just very like, I really want to take care of the plant, I want to do the right thing, and they're not ignorers. They are, I don't know, the front row students in the class. They're kind of the ones with their hand constantly up. Those are the people that I would call the plant waterers. They're the ones that are most likely to have the yellow leaves that we just spoke of. And so there's different kinds of plants that I would recommend for each of those kind of beginners. So let's start with the plant ignorer beginner. This would be a great plant for that person. This plant, I literally sit here and watch TV and type and read books and hang out with my husband, and this plant sits here, and every month or so I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to water that guy. Literally, this guy gets watered about every month or so. He gets ignored. What I look at is the table, because I inherited this from my mom, the lamp, because I think it's cool, and the pot. The plant is awesome. I think it's pretty, but it gets ignored because I'm kind of looking at my husband and the TV and whatever I'm reading first. And so it's getting ignored. And so succulents are a great choice for people that kind of ignore plants or get busy or kind of forget to water. The reason why are these little corpuscles or leaves, they're not really leaves, are filled with water. And so it takes many, many, many days for them to deplete that source of water, which is why they do really well in desert-like conditions. And so that's a really great plant to start out with. And so we've got a couple succulent choices on our website, if you click on succulents in our online shop, and we'll be adding a few more. We've also got some kits in there where you can add 1 or 2 succulents together and have a little succulent garden. So that's kind of the first one that I recommend for beginners. The second one that I recommend is for the plant waterer. Those, like, I'm talking indoor plants here now. I look at plants like calathea or ferns or some of the more leafy type plants that are more jungly. A lot of those don't mind being watered a little bit more regularly and having a maintenance plan. And so that's where you look at the care of that plant. And generally for those guys, you take care of it by letting the soil get dry and then giving it a drink. And then letting the soil get dry and then giving it a drink. A lot of people are like, how often should I water this? Every week, every 2 weeks. Watering doesn't really have much to do with days of the week. What it has a lot to do with is wind, humidity, and how much the plant is using the water. So it's not like the plant says, oh, it's Tuesday, I better drink a lot. It just doesn't think that way. And so you have to kind of look at the soil and see how dry it is and water it then, as opposed to the fact that it's Tuesday or Wednesday and it's been a week. And so those are great kind of plants for beginners. For outdoor plants for beginners, often I recommend natives. Native plants for beginners, and again, if you click on our online shop, the natives are in a separate section. They're really great plants for beginners because they've been around for centuries, if not millennia. And it's not like the cavemen were out there with their Roundup making sure the plant survived. The plant survived on their own year after year after year with Tennessee weather, with Tennessee humidity, with Tennessee soil. And so they're really great plants for beginners if you're starting an outdoor garden. So that's a section of plants that I would really look at if I were a beginner there. So that's question number 4. Question number 5 is, can you pick plants for me? Which is kind of, I get these questions every once in a while. And Graham, if you wouldn't mind, let's go outside. You ready? So we're gonna go outside now. And I'll shut that up. And so what we did is we did some pots the other day, and we've got 2 over here and we've got 2 over here. And sometimes when I work with somebody, it's just kind of like to each his own. Different people like different kinds of plants. And so I kind of, when I garden for myself, I like to defy all the rules. And so this right here, if you could come a little closer, this right here is sorrel, and I picked it because it's got a really great red vein in the leaf. It technically is a vegetable. It's a bitter herb, and it goes really nicely with lettuces in a salad. This is a slow-growing shrub, and I always like some sort of evergreen in a pot because it's green in the winter and I don't have to replace it. Then again, this is a nice kind of blue tone, and so I picked this plant because of the color. I picked this plant because of the pattern, and I picked this plant because it's evergreen. That said, what you might want out of your pots is completely different than what I might want out of my pots or my garden. And so when people say, well, tell me what to buy, I'm kind of stumped, because it's kind of like somebody sending me a picture of their daughter and saying, well, tell me everything I need to buy for a wedding. It just really depends on the daughter. It depends. And so with gardening, it depends on lighting. It depends on your taste. It depends on how much skill you have with gardening, because different people are able to handle different sorts of combinations with more skill. It has a lot to do with the soil. It has a lot to do with the topography, like if it's on a hill or flat or in a container or something like that. And so those are more like conversations back and forth where I get a lot of data from you before making choices. So when people send me pictures of their yard and say, tell me what to buy, it's kind of like somebody sending me pictures of their dog and saying, tell me how to train it. It's just too far of a leap to do via text message. And so what we do in those situations is we have a conversation, and it's either 15 minutes or 30 minutes, and we kind of assess all of those things, and we figure it all out together, and we make sense of your garden. I do a little bit of teaching about maintaining the plants that we select. I do a little bit of counseling as to, hey, you might want to do this because it's easier for you with all the parameters that you've laid out about your lifestyle and how busy you are. I also look at light conditions. It's like, gosh, you know, you're leaning towards some plants that need a ton of sun and your house is in the woods. And so I guide people with that sort of information. So it's a back and forth conversation. And so if you go on our online shop and click on consultation, it's pretty cheap. For 15 minutes, it's $10. And I can sit down with you and kind of figure out at least the beginning of a garden for you so you can get started. If you really want to dive in and do more of a chat for 30 minutes, I think it's like $19.50 or something like that. I can't remember the price, but it's pretty cheap. And so if you have a whole garden that's surrounding your house, it's going to be there for years and years. It's kind of worth $20 to make it survive and look good and be something that you enjoy, that you can feel capable of maintaining. And so we're going to wind up. We're going to go out to my perennial bed and take a look at that. And so this bed is about, 30 or so feet long. And so one of the things that I really encourage people to do is I encourage people to buy multiple plants. So for example, if you're buying lamb's ear, you might want to get more than one so that you get a nice grouping of it. So it's not like a little sticker collection of a little plant here, a little plant there, and a little plant there. And so over here, we've got daisies. And I think I bought initially like 5 of them. And so that way, when the daisies do bloom, I've got a whole bunch of daisies. I don't just have a little tiny posy of daisies. I've got a whole bunch that make a nice show for several weeks. And so that's another thing to think of as you start to organize your garden and plan for that. And so when we get together in our consultations, we can talk about that together and make sure that you're ordering things that make sense and also kind of in your budget. When I work with people, sometimes we do a certain square footage. It's like, okay, I only want to do the bed that is this big. And so we go with that parameter. Sometimes people are like, listen, my whole budget is $80. And so we kind of figure out something nice that works within that envelope, and so forth. It's just different people for different things. And we kind of create a strategy over time so that we can create success for you. So anyway, those are the 5 questions that come often, pretty much every 5 or 10 minutes on my phone while everybody is sheltering in place. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and we look forward to seeing you at our Wednesday pickups, Wednesday and Saturday pickups. At least that's the current schedule. And then hopefully soon we will all be able to shop and be together in the shop and enjoy it, each other face to face, when everything is healthy in our community. So take care. Happy National Gardening Day, and I'll talk to you all again soon.